if I don't stagger falling down. I think that's bear shit.
I was 2 years old, my brother was 4 when we were snowbound. The storms, the big blizzard started the day after Christmas and they never stopped until into March. And it was the last day of March we got out. And the snow was still deep, but my dad shoveled the driveway and we got out into the road and heading toward Coates Highway because we figured that'd be plowed. And he would ram into the deep snow with the car, and then he'd get out and shovel us out, and then he'd back up and slam in it some more. And we just got over the hill, back down on the level, and the snowplow came down the road. The first plow that had been out there in 3 months. And so he got over against the side of the bank, and the plow went by and buried us, but then got out and went to church. I remember sitting on my mother's lap and seeing all that happen. Probably a big event the day we got out of the house, you know, but anyway, I expect there were stories like that at a lot of corners of Manistee County because this area was buried in snow that year. Fences disappeared under the snow. There were no stumps in the woods visible because the snow was deeper than the stumps, and I think everybody probably had stories to tell about that winter.
And that was 1935, you said?
35, 36, yeah. Day after Christmas in 35, and last day of March in 36 was when our family finally got into town. The whole family did. Dad he made some skis out of pine lumber, and he took them in the kitchen. When the blizzards came and there wasn't any relief, he realized it was going to be tough to get out, so he took these pine boards and he made a little jack. He could put them in a boiling kettle on the stove and bend the ends up to make a ski shape, and my mother used paraffin wax on them, I guess, and he'd ski out to Coates Highway. That was just a little over half a mile away, and then he would either walk into Brethren 4 miles or get a ride with somebody with a bobsled, or if somebody had a tractor and was riding in, they'd give him a ride, and he'd come into town, get the mail for the week, and any staples they needed, flour or anything like that, and then he'd go back, and then he had to get on the skis and go back to the shanty. But, you know, we always called it the shanty. I mean, you use the word shack now. I don't know that there's any prestige difference between shack and shanty. I expect it's the same thing, but they just, that one got the name the shanty, and everybody in the family knew when they talked about Charles and Mary, they talked about the shanty. And we lived there then until 1940. We moved into the house where we are now on the storm in November 10th, 1940, the big storm on Lake Michigan. And while that was going on, we were hauling our stuff with a Model A Ford car. We moved everything that we needed out of our shanty up to the house where we are now during that day. And the walls weren't all plastered yet in our new house, but it was going to be plastered, and the house was covered with tar paper. But when that storm came roaring in on that morning, my mother, I can just imagine her saying it yesterday. I said, "Let's move tonight," you know, to get out. She was probably looking at 4 months in the snowbound, you know, so we did move that day in that storm, and we never lived in the shanty anymore after that. That was just a whole different world. We had electricity in the house where we are now. That was a big thrill to go in there and throw a switch and have electric light.
I'm trying to find anything people do with stuff made of birch, you know, birch trees or anything like that.
He's done a lot of postcards with
I've
pictures
made
of loons.
postcards. I've probably made dozens of postcards. At our church camp, we have birch along a swamp, and sometimes the big one will fall, and if you cut it and press it, I mean, it's going to curl a little bit, but if you use a first-class stamp, postage stamp, they'll mail it through the mail because they have to hand cancel it. But one year we sent 20 postcards in a week out of our camp, just cards written. You could write a message on one side, and then I'd make a picture on the other side, just like postcards are. And so I've done a lot of that, and it's the best fire starter in the woods. And then we knew of a guy who made a canoe out of a birch bark, you know, but we discovered in our sawmill that my dad had made that if you cut the birch at the right time of year, when you saw a slab off one side, the birch will fall off the rest of it. So I expect the Indians knew about what time to cut it, because they wouldn't have had to peel the way you have to do, you know, the entire bark layer just comes off. And so we had them laying around our mill yard that year, big, you know, if they had an 8-foot log, we had an 8-foot chunk of birch that was, birch bark that was just in the curl of the shape.
What did you do with them? And just burn them?
Played with them, and I suppose burned them. We wrote on them.
Otto Pusterman had his bubblegum factory. And he decided I need an advertising campaign.
it.